Well, I think that the major differences between pharmaceutical and medical supply chain management issues at this moment are, on the one hand, in the downstream part of the supply chain, where the medical device industry is delivering quite homogeneously, mainly to hospitals as the most important market channel, whereas the pharmaceutical industry is delivering to a wider variety of channels, to wholesalers, who are still a very important actor in that chain, but also direct to pharmacies. Also to distributors, also direct to hospitals, etc. So it's a wider mix of channels that need to be served by the supply chain. From a physical distribution perspective and a physical supply chain perspective, you also see differences where the pharmaceutical industry, at least the traditional pharma companies, are coming from a very decentralized setup, sometimes having dozens of warehouses throughout Europe. They are now working towards regionalization of that and really decreasing the number of warehouses in the European network. If you look at the medical device industry, it's to a large extent the other way around. Of course, there are companies who still have multiple warehouses, but never dozens of warehouses throughout Europe. And those companies in this medical device industry that were very centralized because of the trend in the 1990s, are now working on, hey, is this still the right model, this very centralized model, or should we have, at least for a part of our product portfolio, more decentralized setup to still be able to reach our customers against the promise that we make to them from a commercial perspective. Specific challenges we are mainly working on in the medical device industry at this moment, and what we think we will be working on in the next 1 to 2 years, are a couple of things. Of course, all these companies are working a lot on optimizing their planning concepts, so like S&OP, and already the next generations of that kind of concepts are companies are working on very hard, and that's also where we support companies mainly in bringing over the message throughout the company to bring the operation side and the commercial side of the company much more together. More from a physical supply chain perspective, companies are really reviewing at this moment their networks. Some of them are really centralized, as we heard, for example, Boston Scientific tell today that they integrated even a decentralized company that they acquired into their existing centralized setup in the southern part of the Netherlands. But there are also examples of companies that have a fairly decentralized supply chain with 9, 10, 11, 12 distribution centers throughout Europe. And they are at this moment all reviewing and looking, hey, is this the optimal number of warehouses? Do we have a good allocation of functions within that network? Because, of course, a couple of those projects have already been finished, and the answer is not always, hey, let's move everything into one box, which maybe happened in the 1990s. It's a much more nuanced outcome nowadays, where companies typically set up a central warehouse for part of their product portfolio, but also keep market warehouses in place for example, business critical or lead time critical products. Well, that's obviously what we see going on. So real differentiation per product market combination within a network that has aspects of centralization, but also aspects of more decentralization. From a supply chain management perspective, what we see is that although the network can be fairly decentralized, the management always is much more centralized. Also given the opportunities nowadays that IT offers to manage a decentralized network in a centralized way. Looking at other industries, what I would adopt to medical device supply chains is to be found in the link between the manufacturer and the customer. So also referring to the discussions today here at the conference, getting much better integration through information technology between the hospital, the point of views in the hospital, and the manufacturer's supply chain, ultimately also going into the supplier of the manufacturer, but maybe that's 5 steps too far ahead. But that type of concept, that type of thinking, I would like to adopt to medical technology supply chains. Having said that, I also realize, and again further to the discussions today, that is not something that's going to be realized overnight. But we heard today examples of companies like Medtronic who said, hey, we are working on further collaboration. We are working together with hospitals to improve the supply chain, to improve the visibility. So my wish to adopt this type of concepts to this supply chain, I think, is already becoming true in reality. But before we see that really broadly applied, we will be a couple of years further down the road. The main lesson, and then I keep it close to my own subject here at the conference in terms of collaboration, is really, there are clear opportunities. That's not only a consultant statement as it has been for a long time, I must be honest about that as well in this industry, but now also the industry itself is bringing that up. So there are clear opportunities for collaboration, but there will be a lot of steps to be set before a broad application of this type of collaborative concepts. I value this event because it brings down, let's say, all involved actors in the medical supply chain in an open atmosphere where people really are open. If I look back to this first day, really open to share their thoughts and to discuss with each other. People are open to agree but also open to disagree, so I like that. I think there's also a pretty good mix of manufacturers, logistics service providers and other actors. Maybe it's a pity that there's only one representative from the hospital's side, but on the other hand, that's already a big improvement compared with other events that I attended. So that's where I found most of the value.